what we're going to do here today is just kind of quickly go through some of the things that you really should know before you spend a couple weeks in the Philippines as a vacation or you decide to live here permanently. These are some areas you want to make sure you're on the right page so that you don't end up in hot water. Now, the first one is probably the one that I see violated the most, and it is having a public disrespect for the local customs and traditions. I cannot count how many times I have been in a public area, might be a food court, a mall, even in the immigration office, where you'd think that guys would know better. And they will just start bitching and complaining about, well, I was here the other day and they were closed for some stupid holiday. Well, just because it's a holiday you've never heard of, it's a traditional holiday in the Philippines. So don't say stuff like that. Or guys will either be visiting their Filipinas parents' house or they'll be at a Philippines restaurant and they just start talking out loud about how much they don't like Filipino food. Again, read the room, read the country. You are surrounded by people who grew up with these menu items as a kid. This is what their mom made them. This is the comfort food that they grew up with. Now, I'm not saying you have to pretend you like it, but just keep your mouth shut. If you're just having a private conversation between yourself and another expat, that's different. But when you're in a public place or you're in a family situation with other Filipinos, if you've got something negative to say about the local customs or food or holidays, keep it to yourself. Just remember the old rule. If you haven't got something nice to say, don't say anything. Or I believe it was in Pride and Prejudice, if you have nothing good to say, just talk about the weather. So that's the first thing. The second one is very similar. Avoid public criticism of the government. Now, I'll speak as an American, and I know Canadians and pretty much in the West, UK, we are accustomed, in fact, it is our constitutional right to criticize the government publicly. And that might be on Facebook, it might be in a restaurant, it might be sitting around with 4 other expats with a beer garden or something. We're used to that. We're used to having arguments with each other, conservative, liberals, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. We're accustomed to doing that. But remember, you're not in your country anymore. So before you open your mouth and start criticizing the current or past president of the Philippines or his cabinet or any actions the Senate is doing or not doing, anything related to government, keep your mouth shut in a public forum. Like I said, that counts Facebook and anything online. Just keep it to yourself. Now, if you're having a private conversation with a close expat buddy of yours, just in PM or Messenger or something like that, yeah, you can have your private conversation. But again, when you're in a public place, keep this stuff to yourself, because not only could this lead to you losing your tourist visa, but it could also lead to libel and defamation. Now you might say, well, back in my country, well, there's your first mistake. Back in my country, if what I say is true, it's not libel and it's not defamation. Well, again, you're not in your own country. You're in the Philippines. And in the Philippines, even if what you say is true, it still counts as harm to another person's reputation. And you can be legally held liable by that person for criminal slander and several other charges. So don't go posting stuff about your ex-girlfriend, calling her a bunch of names, and outing how she cheated on you, even if it's true. Do not post that stuff. You'll only be getting yourself into hot water. You're making yourself liable. Don't do it. Now, the next one is, again, pretty much common sense, and it's don't overstay your visa. Too many guys just kind of get into island mode, mañana, I'll take care of it. Or they didn't plan well, it's not in the budget, it's going to cut into their beer money or whatever, but they don't go and renew their visa and keep it current. Don't let that happen to you. Keep your visa current. I try to go a week before it's going to expire, because if you wait until the day, like say a Friday or a Monday, if you wait till the day before it's going to expire, you may show up and they're closed for a holiday you never heard of. It could be a local barangay holiday. It could be a national Philippines holiday, but they're not going to be open for another 3 or 4 days, and now you're beyond your visa. Now, the good thing is that if you are late, they'll charge you about 1,000 pesos, which is about $18. And you can go ahead and take care of it. Shouldn't be a major problem. But you don't want that on your record that you're constantly late renewing your visa. The fourth thing that you want to avoid doing, and again, you'd think most guys would know this, but they don't. Some guys don't. And it is, do not engage in illegal drugs in the Philippines. Now, most people do not come to the Philippines with a heavy drug habit. They're not taking cocaine, they're not taking methamphetamines, they're not taking heroin. But if you're from the United States, marijuana is legal. And maybe you're used to it. It's your recreational thing. It's like having a beer on the weekend. The man doesn't have a problem with it in your country. But what you need to know is, if you're going to live in the Philippines, you may as well just say goodbye to the sticky, because they take marijuana very seriously. I had a part-time maid back in 2012. Long story short, turned out she was already out on bail for a pending case with drugs. She got busted again selling marijuana, and because she violated her bail terms, they took her into custody. And the last I heard, because again, I haven't seen or heard from her in a couple years, but people I know back in the neighborhood, the barangay, said she's still serving time. So you don't want to play around even with weed. You don't want to do it. They take it extremely serious in the Philippines. Now, the next thing is, do not raise your voice or use loud obscenities in a public place. Again, maybe some guys are used to doing that in their home country, but in the Philippines, that will get you in trouble. In fact, raising your voice or using obscenities at the immigration office, that alone can get your visa revoked or not renewed. This is not like America, where you go to the DMV and mouth off at the person behind the counter because you had to wait an hour and a half before they called your number. Do not do that. Same thing in a restaurant. Do not start yelling and berating the waitress. Yes, maybe your food showed up cold. Maybe it showed up late. Maybe you're the last person at the table to get your food 20 minutes after everybody ate. But handle it in a civil, calm tone. You can still ask for the manager. You can still explain your situation, but do not attract attention by raising your voice or using obscenities in public. Now, the next one, surprisingly, I have gotten quite a few comments from guys, and it regards getting involved in relationships, and we're talking physical relationships, with Filipinas that are under the age of 18. Now, I've had plenty of guys comment over the years, it used to be that the age of consent was 12, and several years ago, it was raised to 16. And a lot of guys point at that and they go, oh, well, there you go. There, you see, it's okay to be with a 16, 17-year-old. No, it's not. Legally, no. If you really look at the law, and I'll put some references there in the comment section, but when you really start looking at the law, it's not as cut and dry as, well, as long as she's over 16, it's all okay. No. The age gap between her age and the partner plays a very big part in it. And you can bet the fact that you are not Filipino, you are a foreigner with a 16 or 17-year-old girl, that is not going to look good in front of a judge. There's a link, I'll provide it here. It's a very well-known case with a German vlogger who thought, oh, well, this will be okay. I'll just go ahead and vlog about being in a hotel alone with a girl, but she's 17 years old. It's all going to be okay. Yeah, he was arrested. You can read the full article there in the link. So bottom line, do not think and do not let people tell you, oh, there's a loophole. This doesn't apply to me. It's okay. You know, the Filipinos do it all the time. No. If you want to stay out of trouble and stay out of court and stay out of prison and not get blacklisted, if you don't want problems, only date a Filipina that is at least 18 years or older. And even if they're 18, you make damn sure you have seen a valid government ID, not a school ID that could be just doctored, but an actual government ID, a tax ID number or a national ID that states she is 18 or older. If you deviate from this, you are playing with fire. So I'll just leave it at that. The next one is do not disrespect the local law enforcement. Now, the usual law enforcement officers you're going to run into in the Philippines are what they call the PNP, the Philippines National Police. You will also see what they call traffic enforcers. Now, these guys are more like what we would call traffic cops or traffic directors, but include them as well. If you find yourself at a checkpoint and the PNP is there, just cooperate. All they want to see is that you have your license, you've got the papers to your motorbike, you're wearing your helmet. They do these checkpoints randomly, and they're usually impounding bikes from young kids that are 16 years old running around on a motorbike with no helmets, wearing flip-flops. So if you're just courteous and polite, they'll probably just wave you on through, no big deal. But if you start giving them attitude, you can expect they're going to take it pretty damn personal, and they will find a way to complicate your day. So just be polite. Same rule as immigration. Keep your answers short, and you should have no problem interacting with the local police authorities. Now, the very last item, again, you would think is common sense, but some guys just feed into their ego, and the rule here is do not flaunt your wealth. I've seen guys out at Dumaguete. In fact, one in particular, I remember, he was something of a friend of mine. I saw him on a regular basis, mostly because he was a friend of another Filipina that I knew. But anyways, he had been in the Philippines for like 10 years. You'd think he would have known better. We were there sitting on the boardwalk talking, and he was a well-dressed guy, gold chains, he had gold rings, he dressed very, just very nice. But he wasn't dressed for the Philippines. He was wearing slacks, dress shoes. This is outdoors in the middle of the day. I mean, he had to be just hot as hell wearing this stuff. But he wanted to look really nice because that was his game back in the West. To attract women was to make himself look like a wealthy guy. And he had some money, but that's the vibe he was putting out. And the ironic thing is that as we're talking there on the boardwalk, sitting there on the bench, he's complaining to me that in over 8 years, he has yet to meet a Filipina that was not a gold digger. Meanwhile, I'd run into maybe 2, and that was over 7 years. The vast majority of Filipinas I ever met or dated were not gold diggers. And yet, he's complaining that every single one that he had dated for over like 8 years was a gold digger. I said, well, where are you meeting these women? He said, well, right here. He goes, I just sit here on the bench, and then I don't go chasing women. You know, he had this attitude. He goes, well, I don't go chasing women. I wait for them to come to me. And I looked at him like, are you a retard? What I actually told him was, I said, do you realize You are making yourself a honeypot to attract gold diggers. With all this jewelry and the way you dress, you're just sitting here. All the nice Filipinas, they're not going to introduce themselves to you. They want you to introduce yourself to them, but you're not going to meet them. And the only Filipinas that are going to approach you and hit on you are the ones that are attracted to your signs of wealth. And you're surprised that you keep attracting gold diggers? You don't see the link here? This is like really obvious stuff. And I told him this, and he still was like, well, no, this is how I do it. This is my game, and that, and that, and that. So anyways, do not flaunt your wealth. You're going to attract all the wrong kind of women in your personal life, and you're going to attract the attention of the wrong kind of men who happen to be criminals. Here they call them snatchers. I don't know what they call them everywhere else, but basically they'll just grab your phone or grab your jewelry and run off with it, hoping that they're going to run faster than you are. So I know we covered a lot of ground kind of quickly, but these are things that should be common sense, and yet over the years since 2012, I keep seeing guys make these same mistakes. So just use a bit of common sense, keep your cool, keep a low profile, and you should be fine.